Look at this. The police officer held out a tablet in front of me. The screen showed the school staircase. And in the next moment, I saw my son tumbling down the stairs. I gasped involuntarily. But what shocked me even more was the figure that appeared on the screen. It was my husband, Daniel. "Ma'am, we need to talk about your husband." The officer's voice sounded distant. My mind went blank. Could they possibly be saying that my husband had pushed our son? No, that couldn't be. But why was my husband at that location? Why were the police here? I couldn't understand anything. This was a nightmare that had begun just 3 hours ago. That morning had been like any other ordinary day. I was in the kitchen preparing Ethan's breakfast. The smell of toasting bread filled the room, and the coffee maker hummed quietly. The sound of my son's footsteps coming down the stairs seemed heavier than before. "I'm leaving." Ethan's voice lacked the brightness it once had. The energy typical of a 10-year-old boy had disappeared some time ago. As I watched his retreating back, I told myself it must be the beginning of his rebellious phase. "My name is Rachel. I'm an interior designer who works from home. My husband Daniel is a manager in the legal department of a major corporation. The three of us lived in a house in a quiet suburban neighborhood. From the outside, we must have looked like the picture-perfect family. But recently, something had started to change. Ethan increasingly said he didn't want to go to school. In the mornings, it took him longer to get out of bed, and he didn't want to change into his uniform. When I asked him why, he just shook his head without saying anything. I thought it must be temporary. It's common with children. That's what I believed, so I didn't press him further. My husband had also been acting strange lately. He came home later and later, and even when he was home, he seemed distant. When I asked if something was wrong at work, he'd only answer, "I'm busy," and wouldn't meet my eyes. Conversation decreased during dinner, and a subtle distance began forming between my husband and me. One night, I heard soft crying from upstairs. It was coming from Ethan's room. My heart pounding, I knocked on the door. "Ethan, can I come in?" There was no answer. I gently opened the door. In the dim room, my son sat with his back to the bed. His small shoulders were shaking. "What's wrong? Did something happen?" "Nothing." Ethan didn't turn around. I tried to sit beside him, but his body stiffened. The message that he didn't want to talk came through from that small back. I couldn't say anything and had to leave the room. Standing in the hallway, I felt unease spreading through my chest. Something was wrong. But I didn't know what it was. The next morning, I was drinking coffee alone in the kitchen. Daniel had left early for work as usual, and Ethan had taken the bus to school. In the quiet house, I was thinking about my son's behavior the night before. Then the phone rang. It was from the school. "Hello, is this Ethan Miller's mother?" "Yes, it is. Ethan fell down the stairs and was injured. Could you please come to the school right away?" The world stopped for a moment. With shaking hands, I dialed Daniel's number. After several rings, my husband answered. "Daniel, Ethan's been hurt. They said he fell down the stairs. Please come to the school right away." "I can't right now." "What? What are you saying?" "Our son is injured." "I know. But I can't go right now." "You go." "What do you mean? Why can't you come?" The phone went dead. I stared at my smartphone in shock. My husband's voice had been cold and distant. He seemed like a different person. Anxiety and anger swirled in my chest. What was my husband hiding? Why wouldn't he rush to our son's side? I grabbed my keys and rushed out of the house. As I got into the car, various questions raced through my mind. But at that moment, I didn't yet know that what I was about to see at the school would shake my life to its foundation. The time goes back 2 weeks. That day, I was working on presentation materials for a new client in my home studio. While arranging color samples and checking fabric textures, my cell phone rang. The screen displayed the school's number. "Hello, is this Rachel Miller?" "This is Monica Lawson, Ethan's homeroom teacher." It was a polite, calm woman's voice. It was the first time the homeroom teacher had called me. I answered with some nervousness. "Yes, how can I help you?" "Actually, I'd like to talk with you about Ethan's attitude in class recently. If you have time, could you come to the school?" Attitude in class. I was surprised by those words. Ethan was supposed to be a serious child. He wasn't the type to cause problems. "I understand. Would tomorrow afternoon work?" "Yes, I'll be waiting for you." The next day, I sat facing Ms. Monica in the school classroom. She appeared to be around 35, a well-put-together woman. Her hair was pulled back in a ponytail, and she wore modest makeup. Her smile was gentle, and her manner of speaking was polite. "Ethan is a smart child. But recently, he doesn't seem to be able to concentrate in class. He's often in a daze," Ms. Monica said in a kind tone. I thought back to my son's behavior. It was true that he hadn't seemed energetic lately. "Has anything changed at home?" "No, nothing in particular. Though I had been feeling that he seemed a bit down lately." "I see. He's entering puberty, so there may be some emotional ups and downs." Ms. Monica nodded with an understanding expression. "Child rearing is difficult, isn't it, Mrs. Miller? But please don't worry. I'll make sure to guide him properly. And you must be very busy with your work." There was warmth in her words. I left the classroom feeling reassured. I was glad we had such a good teacher. That's what I thought as I drove home. A few days later, I noticed a change in Ethan. He had gotten even thinner. His cheeks were hollow, and there were faint shadows under his eyes. At dinner time, he hardly tried to eat. "Ethan, you need to eat properly. Are you eating your school lunch? The lunch isn't good." Ethan answered in a small voice, staring at his plate. I became worried. Could he really be losing this much weight just because the lunch wasn't good? That night, I consulted with Daniel. He was in the living room with his laptop open on the sofa, but when he heard what I had to say, he slowly looked up. "Ethan, is that really the only reason?" "What do you mean?" "I mean, is it really just that the lunch isn't good?" Daniel's expression was clouded. In his eyes, there was a complex emotion, as if he wanted to say something but couldn't. "Do you think there's something else?" "No, it's nothing." He said that and turned his eyes back to the laptop screen. The conversation ended there. I felt something was off about my husband's behavior, but I couldn't pursue it further. That night, Daniel secretly went to Ethan's room. While I was reading a book in the bedroom, I heard the two of them talking in the hallway. At first it was quiet, but then I heard Ethan sobbing. I put down my book and tried to quietly go into the hallway. But before I could open the door, I heard Ethan's voice. "The teacher won't let me eat lunch. Only me." My heart nearly stopped. I stood frozen in front of the door. "She calls me stupid in front of everyone." Over and over again. Ethan's voice was trembling. Daniel's low voice continued. "I understand. Daddy will fix this. It's going to be okay now." I quietly went back to the bedroom. My hands were shaking. Ms. Monica, that kind-seeming teacher, was doing such things to my son. I couldn't believe it. The next morning, Daniel told me what he'd heard from Ethan. I stopped with my coffee cup in midair. "That's really true, Ms. Monica?" "Yes," Ethan told me while crying. "But that's..." I searched for words. Ms. Monica was a well-regarded teacher, trusted among the parents. Could it be Ethan's misunderstanding? Maybe Ethan misunderstood. I heard that teacher has a good reputation. When I actually met her, she was very kind. Rachel, I believe our son. Daniel's voice was quiet but filled with strong will. But without proof, to suspect a teacher. If we're wrong, Ethan's position. I understand. Then I'll investigate. Investigate what? Proof. To confirm whether what Ethan is saying is true. Daniel said that and left the house without even drinking his coffee. After that, he came home even later. He said it was overtime and started coming home at 10 or 11 at night. Even on weekends, he said he had things to do and went out. I gradually began to harbor different suspicions. Was it really overtime? When he was using his smartphone and I approached, he'd make gestures to hide the screen. When phone calls came in, he'd go to another room to talk. My husband was hiding something. One Saturday afternoon, Daniel said he was going to the library and went out. The library. Would my husband, who worked in legal affairs, have a reason to go to the library on his day off? I watched from the window as his car turned the corner. In my chest, a small seed of doubt had begun to sprout. In fact, Daniel hadn't gone to the library. He was at a cafe near the school. There, he was meeting with Grace, another mother from the same class. Grace was a woman in her early 40s, and her daughter Emma was also in Ms. Monica's class. My daughter is going through the same thing. At first I couldn't believe it. But Emma started hurting herself, on her wrists. Tears welled up in Grace's eyes. Daniel nodded quietly. So we're not the only ones. There may be other children who've been victimized. But everyone's too scared to speak up. The children think the teacher's words will be believed over theirs. The two of them decided to work together to gather evidence. They contacted other parents to see if there were similar cases. Daniel walked around the school grounds and checked the locations of security cameras. Grace prepared a diagnosis from her daughter's psychiatrist. Meanwhile, I became increasingly suspicious of my husband's behavior. One day, a cafe receipt fell from his shirt. It showed the price for 2 coffees. My hands trembled. My husband was meeting with someone. He might say it was a work colleague. But on a day off. Going so far as to lie about going to the library. I didn't say anything to my husband. But at night when I got into bed, I couldn't sleep. Looking at my husband's sleeping face beside me, I wondered. What is this person hiding from me? Something about Ethan. Or someone else. And this morning, the school called. Your child fell down the stairs and was injured. I called my husband with shaking hands. But he said he couldn't come. I can't right now, he said. Why couldn't he come when our son was injured? As I drove, various questions swirled in my head. But the answer far exceeded my imagination. The moment I parked in the school parking lot, I witnessed a strange scene. 2 police cars were stopped in front of the main entrance. The flashing red and blue lights were off, but their presence alone created an ominous atmosphere. I got out of the car and ran. The sound of my heels hitting the ground echoed in my ears. My heart was pounding. Was Ethan all right? Why were the police here? Various worst-case scenarios raced through my mind. As I approached the entrance, there was a crowd. Teachers, several parents, and uniformed police officers. At the center was Ms. Monica. She covered her face with both hands, her shoulders shaking. She appeared to be crying. I pushed through the crowd to get to the front. Where is Ethan? Where is my son? My voice was shaking. One of the police officers turned around. He was a man in his 40s with a calm expression. Are you his mother? Your son is in the nurse's office. He just has minor bruises. No serious injuries. A breath of relief escaped me. But immediately, new questions welled up. What happened? Why are the police here? The officer led me to a place a little away. A quiet spot in the corner of the hallway, away from the other people. Ma'am, please listen calmly. Your son fell down the stairs. Down the stairs. My face went pale. But it wasn't an accident. Not an accident. What do you mean? The officer showed me the tablet he was holding. Please look at this. It's footage from the school's security camera. I took the tablet with trembling hands. The screen showed the landing of the school staircase. The time stamp showed 10:15 this morning. The footage began to play. Ethan was standing at the top of the stairs. In front of him was Ms. Monica. There was no audio, but I could tell Ms. Monica was saying something. Ethan shook his head slightly. Ms. Monica's expression changed. It was a cold expression, without a trace of kindness. And in the next moment, Ms. Monica pushed Ethan's chest with both hands. I let out a silent scream. My hands holding the tablet trembled. Ethan's small body stumbled backward and tumbled down the stairs. 1 step, 2 steps, 3 steps. I wanted to look away but couldn't take my eyes off the screen. At that moment, a man's figure appeared from the edge of the screen. The man pushed Ms. Monica aside and ran down the stairs. He caught up to Ethan as he was rolling down and scooped up that small body. That man was Daniel. My husband. Why? Why was my husband here? He had said he was at work. He said he couldn't come. And yet, why was he at the school? I was confused. I couldn't understand what was happening. The footage continued. Daniel lifted Ethan up. Ms. Monica was shouting something. Other teachers rushed over. And then another woman appeared. A woman I didn't recognize. She was holding a cell phone and appeared to be filming something. The officer quietly began to explain. Your husband has been investigating Monica Lawson's abusive behavior for several weeks. He was cooperating with other parents of victims to gather evidence. Victims. Plural. It wasn't just Ethan. Today, your husband and the other parents came to the school to secure final evidence to submit to the school board. That's when they witnessed this crime in progress. My knees nearly gave out. My husband hadn't been having an affair. He had been fighting to protect our son. Alone, without telling me anything. Why didn't he tell me? Why didn't he trust me? No, that's wrong. I was the one who didn't believe. Even when Ethan cried and pleaded, even when Daniel said he would investigate, I doubted them. I believed the teacher, the system, the superficial reputation, instead of believing my own son and husband. Handing the tablet back to the officer, I ran down the hallway. I opened the nurse's office door. There was Ethan sitting on the bed, and Daniel standing beside him. Ethan. When my son saw me, tears welled up in his eyes. I hugged him. His small body trembled in my arms. I'm sorry. Mommy should have noticed. Ethan didn't say anything. He just gripped my shirt tightly. Daniel said quietly. Ethan is a strong boy. Today, he stood up to Ms. Monica. He told her it wasn't right that she wouldn't let him eat lunch. I looked up at my husband. His eyes were red. And then, that woman. Daniel's face darkened. Pushed him down the stairs. It's a good thing we had set up cameras. Otherwise, it would have been treated as an accident. Daniel hadn't been alone. I heard a voice from the hallway. Ms. Monica's shrill voice. That's a lie. That child fell on his own. I didn't do anything. I was just disciplining him. I left the nurse's office. In the hallway, Ms. Monica was surrounded by police officers. Her face was wet with tears, but anger and panic showed in her eyes. Daniel appeared from behind me. He spoke quietly but forcefully. We have testimony from other victims. We have medical records. We have enough evidence to prove your crimes. You're finished. Ms. Monica's face twisted. She tried to shake off the police officers, but they held her firmly. And then she noticed me. In that instant, her expression changed. The tears stopped, and a cold smile appeared at the corners of her mouth. She broke free from the officer's restraint and approached me. Then, in a voice so small that no one else could hear, she whispered, "I've hated you since high school." I felt a shock like an electric current, and the door to my memory opened. I stared at her face. Those eyes, that mouth, that voice, I definitely recognized them. Monica Lawson. In high school, the inconspicuous girl who was always in the corner of the classroom. You had everything. Popularity, friends, him too. I had nothing. I was always in the shadows. But this time was different. I destroyed what was precious to you. Monica laughed. It was a laugh tinged with madness. The officers pulled her away. As she was being led away, she kept looking at me. The eyes of a woman who had harbored resentment for 20 years. I stood there frozen. I felt all the strength draining from my body. Daniel supported my shoulder. Did you know her? A high school classmate. But I hardly ever talked to her. Daniel breathed deeply. So that's why she targeted Ethan. In the crowd in the hallway, a woman stood. She approached me. A woman in her 40s with a tired expression. "Nice to meet you, Rachel. I'm Grace. I've been working with Daniel on the investigation." Grace. The woman my husband had been meeting. I shook her outstretched hand. "I'm sorry. I knew my husband was meeting with you and I." Grace smiled sadly. "I know. Daniel told me. He wanted to protect you. Because he didn't want to hurt you, he kept it all to himself." Tears overflowed from my eyes. My husband hadn't kept quiet because he suspected me. He had been fighting alone to protect me. And I had been suspecting him. Grace continued. "We're people who know the same pain. Let's fight together. To make sure Monica never stands at a podium again." I nodded. I wiped my tears and straightened my back. No more hesitation. No more doubt. I would believe in my son, my husband, and myself, and fight. From the nurse's office, Ethan peeked out. He was looking at us anxiously. I smiled at him. "It's okay, Ethan. There's nothing to be afraid of anymore. Mommy will protect you." Ethan nodded slightly. For the first time in a while, relief showed on his face. Outside, Monica was being put into a police car. To the very end, she was screaming like a mad person. But no one was listening to her words anymore. That night, when I got home, I pulled an old cardboard box from the back of the closet. A box I hadn't opened since we moved. I brushed off the dust and opened the lid, and a nostalgic smell rose up. The smell of youth. Sweet and a little bitter. The high school yearbook was on top. The navy blue cover was faded. I took it to the living room table and began turning the pages. Smiling students. A young me. Photos surrounded by friends. Cultural festivals, sports days, school trips. Those happy days were trapped in the pages. And on one page, my hand stopped. Monica Lawson. A small black and white photo. Placed in an inconspicuous location. At the edge of group photos, always in the back. Her smile was reserved, with eyes that seemed to be looking somewhere far away. I traced my memory. Monica. She was always alone. In the library, in corners of the school building. When I was laughing with friends, she would stare from a distance. I had noticed that gaze. But I pretended not to notice. And then I remembered. In the spring of senior year, I started dating a boy named Michael Chen. He was the basketball team captain and popular in our grade. We were the couple that attracted attention throughout the school. One day, I heard from a friend. Apparently Monica had liked Michael. She'd apparently harbored secret feelings for him. But I didn't care. Love was first come, first served. It was her fault for not speaking up. That's what I thought. On graduation day, Monica stared at me. When we passed in the hallway, she stopped. She looked like she wanted to say something. But in the end, she left without saying anything. Those eyes at that time. Mixed with hatred, sadness, and resignation. 20 years. Had she carried those feelings for 20 years? Getting married, becoming a teacher, and still the resentment didn't disappear. And seeing my happy family on social media, did her jealousy grow? I was ashamed of my youthful, insensitive self. But at the same time, I thought, that's no excuse. No matter how much resentment she held, there was no reason to hurt a 10-year-old child. Closing the album, I spread out the materials Daniel had collected. He had apparently worked all night creating them. A list of victims, testimonies, medical records, email logs. Everything was organized and arranged chronologically. 5 victims. Including Ethan. The youngest was 8, the oldest 12. All were Monica's students. She had been clever. She didn't use violence that left marks on the body. Instead, she repeated psychological abuse. Not letting them eat lunch. Not letting them go to the bathroom. Humiliating them in front of the entire class. Repeatedly telling them they were stupid. And then threatening that if they told their parents, she'd give them the lowest grades, that no one would believe what children said. Grace's daughter Emma became truant. Another boy transferred schools. Another girl still goes to a psychiatrist 3 times a week. And they all said the same thing, the teacher is scary, but no one will believe us. The next day, Daniel and I visited a law office. A female lawyer named Jennifer Cole greeted us. A sharp-eyed woman in her mid-50s. Mrs. Miller, Mr. Miller. My deepest sympathies for what happened to your son. Jennifer reviewed the materials. As she turned the pages, she occasionally frowned. This is clear child abuse. We can fight this with both criminal charges and a civil lawsuit. There's plenty of evidence. We decided to cooperate with the other victim families as well. Grace offered to be the contact person. Over the weekend, we all gathered. 5 families, 10 adults and 5 children. We shared our respective pain and confirmed our respective anger. And several weeks later, a shocking fact came to light. This wasn't Monica's first time. Jennifer discovered it in her investigation. Monica had caused similar problems at another school 5 years ago. She had conspired with the principal at the time to cover it up and escaped in the form of voluntary resignation. The school's records noted there had been problems, but it never became public. Further investigation revealed that at least 12 children had been victimized over the past 5 years. 1 child was forced to move. 1 child is still taking medication. 1 child became unable to trust people. And the most terrifying discovery, before coming to the current school, Monica had researched my information on social media. Where I lived. How old my son was. Which school he attended. From her old laptop, that search history was found. She had deliberately transferred to this school. She had applied to be the homeroom teacher for Ethan's grade. And when Ethan was assigned to her class, she wrote in her diary. Finally, my chance for revenge has come. I'll destroy what's precious to Rachel. It was planned. All of it. A 20-year revenge drama of madness. The school board hearing was held 2 months after the incident. In the large conference room, board members, school officials, parents, and the press gathered. Monica attended with her lawyer. Her expression was hard, her eyes vacant. One by one, the parents of the victims took the witness stand. Because of that teacher, my daughter couldn't go to school for a year. Even now, just hearing the word classroom makes her tremble. Grace's voice trembled, but her core was strong. My son still has nightmares. He's afraid of stairs. Why didn't the school notice sooner? Another father said, clenching his fists. And then it was my turn. I stood up and walked to the witness stand. All eyes in the conference room focused on me. Monica was also looking at me. With those cold eyes. I took a deep breath and began to speak. Monica Lawson, you hurt an innocent 10-year-old child because of personal resentment toward me. You harbored jealousy for 20 years and targeted unrelated children. That's not discipline. It's a crime. My voice gradually grew stronger. I don't care how much you hate me. Whatever our past was, it doesn't matter anymore. But hurting children, I will never forgive that. Never, as a mother. The conference room fell silent. Monica lowered her face. The chairman read the verdict. Monica Lawson, we hereby impose the following sanctions on you: permanent revocation of your teaching license, criminal prosecution for child abuse, and $180,000 in total damages to the victim families. Monica tried to stand, but her knees gave out. Her lawyer supported her. A police officer approached. As she was being led away, she looked back at me one last time. In those eyes, nothing remained. No hatred, no regret. Just the empty eyes of a broken person. I looked back quietly. I was no longer afraid of anything. When I left the conference room, Daniel and Ethan were waiting. Ethan hugged my waist. Mommy, you were so cool. I stroked my son's head. It's over, Ethan. It's all right now. 6 months later, on an autumn Sunday morning, soft light streamed into the living room. Outside the window, the maple tree in the yard was beginning to turn red. The aroma of coffee drifted from the kitchen. I could hear the sound of Daniel making pancakes. I sat on the sofa and opened the newspaper. In a corner of the local paper was a small article. Monica Lawson sentenced to 4 years in prison. Teaching license permanently revoked. The cover-up at her previous school was also exposed, and the principal at the time was also dismissed. The article included a photo of her face. I quietly folded the newspaper. I didn't need to think about her anymore. I heard footsteps coming down the stairs. It was Ethan. He seemed a little taller than before. Color had returned to his cheeks, and there was a brightness in his eyes. Good morning, Mommy. Good morning, Ethan. He came into the living room and sat next to me on the sofa. For these past 6 months, Ethan had been going to a psychological counselor once a week. In the first few weeks, he didn't talk to the counselor about anything. He just sat and stared at the floor. But gradually, he changed. He became able to put his feelings into words. What had been scary, what had been sad, what had made him angry. And now, he could talk about the future. How's the new school? Ethan smiled. It's good. Ms. Johnson is really kind. I'm going to present in science class soon. At his new school, Ethan was blessed with a kind homeroom teacher. His classmates welcomed him warmly too. Last week, he went to a friend's house for the first time. When he came home, he talked excitedly and continuously about building a spaceship with Legos, playing with the dog, wanting to go over again. Daniel emerged from the kitchen. He was carrying a plate piled with pancakes. Breakfast is ready. The three of us sat at the table. The sweet scent of maple syrup. Ethan happily picked up his fork. From outside, we could hear birds singing. Hey, Mommy, Daddy. You know what? I like school again. Tears welled up in my eyes. But this time, they weren't tears of sadness. I hugged Ethan. His small body was more solid than before. Daniel took a sip of coffee and said, "You're a strong boy, Ethan. You really did well." "Because Daddy protected me." "No, it's because you told us. You had the courage to tell the truth. That was the most important thing." I looked at my husband. I still sometimes feel ashamed of myself for not believing Ethan at that time. But Daniel didn't give up. He kept fighting alone. "Daniel, thank you so much." "For what?" "For not giving up, even when I didn't believe." Daniel smiled quietly. "We're family." When we finished eating, Ethan ran out into the yard. Max the dog wagged his tail happily and jumped on him. The two of them ran around on the lawn. Ethan's laughter echoed through the yard. I watched that scene from the window. Daniel stood beside me. Grace contacted me. "Emma is getting used to her new school too." "That's good. Let's all get together sometime." "Yeah, let's do that." The victim families still keep in touch. Once a month, we gather and report on recent developments. The children are also recovering little by little. The scars may never completely disappear. But we're moving forward together. Outside the window, Ethan and Max are playing. The autumn sunlight illuminates them both. I thought, a real family isn't just about blood ties. It's about believing, protecting, forgiving, and fighting together. People who can do that are a real family. Laughter echoes in the living room. Daniel says something funny, and I laugh. Ethan runs in and jumps on us. The three of us embrace. Those dark days are over. Outside the window, maple leaves dance in the wind. Old leaves fall, and a new season begins. For our family too, a new story was about to begin.